We are following the latest out of the White House, where President Trump is signaling he may try to end a 150-year-old constitutional right. The president tells the political website Axios he plans to sign an executive order to, quote, remove the right to citizenship for babies of non-citizens and unauthorized immigrants born on U.S. soil.
So this means that those children would not automatically be American citizens, despite being born in the U.S. Here's what the president said in that interview with Axios.
Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Have you talked about that with council?
Yeah, I have.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen. With an executive order. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
that's
it's
a very
exactly
interesting. I didn't think anybody knew that but me. I thought I was the only one. Jonathan.
So Stef Kight is one of the reporters who wrote that story for Axios. So on the website, Steph, you guys pushed back against the president's assertion that the U.S. is the only country that offers birthright citizenship. In fact, there are 30 countries that offer it. Canada is one of them. But admittedly, a lot of the other ones are Central and South American countries, Caribbean countries. So he was wrong on that. But is he right on the idea that the president has the legal authority to change this?
The majority of legal and constitutional experts would say that he actually does not have the power to do this. But there are a few conservatives who have been arguing over the past several years that there is a right, that the Constitution isn't being applied correctly here, that the 14th Amendment was meant only to apply to citizens and permanent residents of the U.S., and it does not apply to those on temporary visas or who are here unauthorized. So while the majority, as I said, would say he doesn't have the right to do this, this is going to be shut down in the court if he does go through with this executive order, there are legal arguments out there, particularly among conservatives, that say, no, actually, there is a way for him to do this.
Well, that's interesting because the Constitution is very explicit in this. It doesn't give you any caveats in terms of if they're a citizen. It says anyone born in this country. So what are the legal challenges if the president tries to push forward with this?
Right, and the argument really, it centers on the line subject to the jurisdiction of the state or of the U.S. And so what some conservatives have argued is that that meant full jurisdiction, meaning that they have full allegiance to the U.S., political allegiance to the U.S., not just the fact that they're subject to U.S. laws. And that's where conservatives say the Constitution actually does kind of have a little bit of a nuanced view on this. But most people do say it's pretty clear. It says that if you're on U.S. soil, if you're born on U.S. soil, you are entitled to citizenship. But it is that particular reading of that one bit of the 14th Amendment that some conservatives have argued gives the president the ability to change, or as they would say, correct the way this has been interpreted.
Now, my understanding was originally the 14th Amendment was brought to bear because a lot of people were coming from Europe, coming into this country, and there were a lot of those people who were not yet citizens, but they had children. So to populate the country, they were encouraging that kind of activity. So it's interesting to me that there are some conservatives who are trying to reinterpret that particular amendment when a baseline for conservatism is to take the Constitution on its face value.
And of course, this comes as there's been, over the past several years, this rise of undocumented immigrants coming to the U.S. and giving birth to their kids here. And that's something that I think many conservatives have used as kind of the reasoning behind this push to end this citizenship for people who aren't citizens of the U.S., for children who are born to non-citizens. And so that's kind of the context this is coming in, of course, that there are undocumented immigrants who come to the U.S. and decide to have kids here. And sometimes they do sponsor their parents to become citizens as well. And that's something that the president talked about when he spoke to my colleagues, Jonathan Swan and Jim Vandehei, in the interview with Axios for HBO. And so that is the context. That's what they're getting at. They don't want it to be, they don't want it to apply to everyone. They think it should only apply to certain citizens or people who are going to be permanent residents of the U.S.
So when I heard this interview, I thought to myself, well, it's not like we're having a raging debate about this issue here in this country.
Yeah,
no one's demanding a change.
Discussion.
So why are we talking talking about it now. So you can't help but to consider the timing, the fact that we're so close to the midterms. This is, over the past couple of weeks, the president has been talking about this caravan, that it's a national emergency. You got to send troops to the border. So I wanted to ask you, what do you make of the timing of bringing this up?
Of course, the president, we've seen him over and over again in the past few days, few weeks, bringing immigration to the center stage. Again, it's something that tends to play well with Trump supporters, which is, of course, important heading into midterms. It's something that the president campaigned on in 2016. It became sort of his big issue. So I think we're definitely seeing that over and over again. This particular report was something that my colleague Jonathan Swan had been tracking down and had been hearing from sources that it was something the president was considering, and he actually just kind of decided, well, I might as well ask the president about this. So we weren't necessarily expecting the president to tell us that this is a real plan that he has talked about with his counsel, but it certainly does come at a very interesting time where immigration has become another big issue, with the caravan heading towards the U.S. and the president's tweets. So I definitely think the timing is important, and immigration is an important issue for especially Trump supporters.
It really is. All right, Stef Kight, thank you so much.
Thank you.